now.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you, and we are delighted. My name is Barbara Smith, and I'm here with my colleague, Christian McNeill, and we have written a book entitled Addiction, One Cause and One Solution. And we have taken this time during the pandemic to go through the book chapter by chapter and to just spend the first 20 minutes or so of these sessions to explain a little bit more and go into a little bit more detail about the chapters. And then at the end of that time, we will turn off the recording and invite all of you to turn on your cameras and join our conversation. So today, our topic is on, I've forgotten already.
Serenity and peace of mind.
Serenity. Thank you. Yes. And Christian's going to start us off. So go for it.
Oh, thanks, Barbara, and welcome those of you who are joining us live, and welcome anybody who's watching the recording. Yeah, this was coming across this idea was quite revolutionary to me, and yet I instantly saw the sense of it, and so perhaps to just give it a little bit of context. I feel like my life has had various different stages. So there was a stage where I just had no self-awareness whatsoever. And I started drinking in that period. Everything I was doing really was kind of unconscious, if you like, or I certainly had no interest in an inner life or a spiritual life or anything like that. And then there was a period where I was in trouble with drink, and once I became aware, the period of trouble lasted longer than my awareness that I was in trouble. But at some point, it dawned on me that my drinking was out of control, and ultimately, it dawned on me that I was an alcoholic. And that was accompanied by a really powerful sense of wanting to know what was wrong. What was wrong, and what was my diagnosis, and frankly, this thing of an alcoholic didn't quite cut it for me. It didn't. That never felt wholly right or a complete explanation. And the one thing that was true was I was very, very willing to work extremely hard if that was required to for my life to get better. And in the recovery program, there were lots of suggestions about things that actions that had to be taken, and a look that had to be taken of myself and shared with other people, and all of that stuff, and focusing on defects. And so I really had a lot going on in my mind in those early days of recovery. I was very, very grateful to be sober, and I don't want to knock that, but there was a lot of confusion and a lot of unanswered questions. And it was quite some time before I stumbled across the inside out understanding, which is the subject matter of our book and of these calls. And I can't remember the words, I don't know what was said, but something along the lines of nobody's broken, you're not broken. And but for thought in the moment, you would always be in a state of peace of mind. And it wasn't exactly that, but it was something along those lines. And what was even, and it wasn't whatever the words were, clearly, but there was something about the truth of that sentiment that really hit me. I suddenly got it. I suddenly got, I could stop running around looking for a diagnosis of what was wrong with me, and a prescription or of what I needed to do to be better. I suddenly saw that in me and in each of us, there's just this essence, and part of that, one feature of that essence is that peace of mind is just the sort of home state. And I can forget about that. It can become overshadowed at any moment by what we describe as thought in the moment. That's when I get caught up in my thoughts and beliefs and conditioning and values and ideas and expectations and resentments and regrets, and all of that stuff can seem very, very real, and that creates the moment to moment experience. But the truth is, that's all just conversation. And underneath that, there's a, for me and for you and for everyone, there is a default state that is just peace of mind, serenity. And you don't have to work for those, they are your birthright. So that I'd probably like to pause there, Barbara, and invite you to come in and explain your perspective on it, or anything that you think I've um, missed
Yeah.
or glossed over.
Well, I think the thing that I've seen with this is that when you give people who are already overwhelmed and stressed and have so much on their mind and the busyness of modern life, and then you say, well, you have to now go and do all these things to find peace of mind, it doesn't, it kind of seems silly to me now. But at the time, it was a prescription that we would give people. um, go to church, or go to the, go out into nature, or do this, or do more mantras, or do more meditation. I did meditation. That was one of my incarnations before learning this understanding. And I would tell everyone, oh, you need to do more meditation. And so of course that would just add more to their stress, that they weren't doing enough meditation, or they weren't doing the right meditation. Maybe if they did this kind of meditation, maybe if they did it, at this time of day, and again, it was just adding and adding and adding. And so once I saw that peace of mind was this deep inner wellspring that was always there, had always been there, and that I could just simply drop into it at any time. That when people say, well, I really need to go to church to feel peace. Well, what you do when you're in church is you drop into your inner peace. The church isn't bringing you peace, because there are times when you can be in church and have a very busy mind and be worrying about, getting home, getting dinner on, and, what about work tomorrow? And, so it just doesn't even make any sense anymore to really, once you see how it all works, that all we're ever experiencing moment to moment is our thinking. um, you just realize that didn't even make rational sense. But once you start to see, okay, I can just settle down. I heard Michael Neal talk a few weeks ago about, we sort of have free will, and that, we can't really choose the thoughts that come into our head, but we definitely sort of have free won't, which ones we're not going to grab onto and run with. And when we can see that, it's like, I'm just not going to go there. I can just quiet myself down to a place where I can tap into this inner wellspring, the peace within. In the Book of Common Prayer, they talk about it, the peace that passeth all understanding. This internal place. I like inner wellspring, but I just wanted to read a little paragraph from the book, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Christian. It says, we don't need to work at serenity. Peace of mind is what emerges when thinking, anxiety, and rumination fall away. We only lose it as thought builds and we take that thinking seriously. But for our thinking, as Christian said, we would be living in a state of serenity. It is one of the great gifts of being human. Realizing that serenity always lies behind our thought created emotional weather, like the sun behind the clouds, can dramatically improve our quality of life. It can also enable us to accept the darker thoughts and feelings without judging or pathologizing ourselves.
Like that. Did we
Yeah,
write?
pretty good. I know, I read this, I go, wow, we wrote that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, it's nice. And it's when you quoted the piece that passeth understanding. for me, all these kind of biblical sayings make sense now, and it doesn't mean that I've embraced any of these churches, but there's a universality to them. You know, they're like poetry to me. And another one that really appeals to me is one that a friend of mine uses, and he said we can either be caught up in the story of me, and that really is all of the stuff that is in the busy mind, or we can be resting in the heart of God. And again, it doesn't require that a belief in you know, any whatever our sense of the divine is. I think that applies. That's how I see it. And it's the strangest thing. It's the subtlest thing because, like you said, Barbara, that there's a limit to we can't control. It's not what comes into our mind is not an exercise of the ego. We can't control that, but sometimes very subtly it seems that we learn once we once we have a grasp of how we're made and how human beings operate. I just think more and more falls away. One of a teacher that we have in common, Keith Blevins, talks about it's almost as though there's a sorter inside, and you know, more and more things are rejected as not helpful to the system. And I saw that play out really clearly this week. I was talking to a client, and she was talking about how much she resented her family, not for things that they'd done in the past, but for things that they were doing in the present, and they were pretty sort of shabby things. But it was the strangest thing as I was talking to her and hearing more about this, and I was recognizing that many of the behaviors that she was complaining about were also behaviors that people close to me can sometimes get caught up in. And it used to utterly rip my knitting out, as we say here. It used to drive me potty. And I can still get reactive at times in the short term. But I thought I just have so much more peace around their behavior. I really don't feel it's my business anymore. And I don't know when that happened. You know, the sorter inside sorted it at some point. You know, there is so much less that bothers me today. And what a gift. You know, I really love the fact that one insight starts a chain reaction here, and nobody knows how long that's how you know how quickly that will go, or what's gonna be swept away in it. But it's a chain reaction that clears a lot of that clutter and reveals more of the serenity and peace of mind that we're talking about here. That's how I see it.
And when our minds are calm and clear and we do drop into that place, we see so much. I think our common sense emerges. There's just a state of equilibrium that, again, when you realize that that's like an app that we have, that it's always been there, you know, but we just never knew that. Again, we were so caught up in this idea that we had to work at it, that we had to work at our serenity, which, you know, again, like that doesn't even make any sense. But we were caught up in that, all the endless self-improvement and self-help that we were that we were sold. You know, to realize, wait a minute, this is built into me. And when my mind settles and I can experience that, and you know, I think about some of my grandmother's phrases where she would say, go collect yourself, you know, or just go take a moment, you know, just, you know, gather yourself together here. And I think really that's what that points to, is that as the mind settles, you know, it will become clear, and you do figure things out, and you do find your way, and you are much more tuned into inspiration and creative problem solving and things. But I think, you know, we're not all going to sit around in a blissed out state all the time. That's really not realistic. It's not the way life goes. But again, just knowing that there's nothing we have to do to get there other than the feedback loop that our feelings give us, that Yeah, I'm not in a good place right now, and I need to settle it down enough to be able to drop in and experience a more clear and more peaceful place.
Mm, nice. Barbara, do you think that would be a good point to
I think so. I think so.
so we'll stop the recording and move on to the live part of the webinar.